In this video, we bid farewell to the recently deprecated Neovim plugin manager called Packer and launch our configuration into the future with the blazing speed of Lazy.nvim. This is not to be confused with the Lazy.nvim distribution. For the rest of the video, I will refer to Lazy.nvim simply as Lazy. I've been thinking about switching to Lazy for a little while now, because I've heard many people boast faster startup times and overall improved performance, but with Packer recently being abandoned, now seemed like the perfect opportunity to take the plunge. Since one of our goals is to improve startup time, let's first measure the current startup time of Neovim and Packer. I currently have about 40 plugins in my configuration. The following command will start Neovim and write detailed startup performance logs to the specified file, and then open that file. A quick glance at the first column shows that our total startup time is 106 milliseconds. We could dig into which plugins are taking the longest, but I'll show you a better way to do that after we migrate to Lazy. Before we install Lazy, I'm going to make a backup of my Packer configuration first and open it up on the right as a reference. You can find the link to Lazy in the show notes. Copy the installation snippet and paste into your Lua file. Also, copy the basic Lazy plugin setup structure. Next, copy the block of plugins from your old configuration and paste it into our new setup block. I know some people just do a find and replace on certain keywords and hope for the best, but I recommend you take your time and convert each one properly. In order to do that, we need to understand the anatomy of a Lazy plugin spec. A plugin can be configured in two forms. The simple form is just a string representing the plugin's short URL. Some plugins will fall into this category and are very easy to convert. The other form is a Lua table, with the first value being your plugin's short URL, followed by a number of optional properties. Some of these properties are related to lazy loading, which we'll cover in a few minutes. The dependencies property allows you to define which plugins are required by this plugin. The ops property is a convenient way to pass options to the plugin that would normally be passed to the setup function. The config property is a way to completely override the loading of a plugin. Some plugins in Packer load a number of dependencies using the requires property. We need to change the requires keyword to dependencies. You can find a link to the complete keyword migration guide in the show notes. A lot of plugins provide installation instructions specifically for Lazy, so it is a good idea to refer to the plugin's GitHub page. This can be especially useful for complicated plugins. Another good reference is Kickstart.nvim. There are a number of common plugins already configured to use Lazy here. You can find the link in the show notes. Take your time and cross-reference these sources to configure each plugin. After you've converted all of your plugins, restart Neovim and make sure you don't see any errors. Once everything looks clean, we'll start Neovim again with the startup time option to measure the performance. Keep in mind, we haven't set any plugins to lazy load yet. The startup time is now 86 milliseconds, but we can do better. Now, it's time to explain how to lazy load plugins. First, any plugins that are only loaded as dependencies of other plugins will automatically be lazy loaded. Plugins that are needed for the initial UI, like color scheme and status line, should not be lazy loaded. For any other plugins that you don't need to be available immediately on startup, there are a couple of options. Setting a plugin's lazy option to true means the plugin will be loaded as soon as it is required. Another really useful way to lazy load a plugin is to set its event option to delay the loading of the plugin until the event occurs. For instance, we set nvim CMP's event to insert enter to load the plugin only after entering insert mode. Lazy also provides a very lazy event to load plugins after Neovim has finished starting. You can also lazy load based on file type or key bindings. Go through your plugins and add the event equals very lazy for any plugins that you don't need until after Neovim has fully started. Before we go too far, we should call the check health command on lazy to make sure everything is functional. It looks like it is warning about old Packer data. Let's run the recommended commands and rerun the check health command. Looking good. Let's check the startup time again. The startup time is slightly better, but something doesn't seem right. If we look closely at the times in the second column, we can see the init.lua is taking the majority of the time. After some investigation, I realized this is because the init.lua explicitly loads a number of plugins, and this bypasses Lazy's loading system. To resolve this, we have two options. Either move each separate plugin configuration into our single Lazy plugin file, or we completely restructure everything following Lazy's documentation on structuring your plugins. This section describes how to dynamically load plugin specs from our plugins directory without the need for a plugins file. After some careful thought, I decided that restructuring would be the best option. This not only isolates each plugin's configuration to its own file, but makes adding new plugins as simple as adding one new file to our plugin directory. First, let's move our Lazy bootstrap code into our init.lua. Next, we can start Lazy by passing the string plugins to its setup function. This tells Lazy to load all of the plugins in our plugins directory. Next, we'll move each Lazy plugin spec over to its own file. Each file will start with the word return, followed by the Lazy plugin spec we talked about earlier. Any setup configuration options that you already have can move into the ops section of the plugin spec. If you have any complex Lua configuration code, you can move this block into the config property. If you need both ops and config, you can pass the ops as the second parameter of the config function and then pass it to the plugin setup function. Go ahead and follow this process for every plugin in your configuration. When you're done, you can remove the old plugins file and clean up any old requires entries in your init.lua. Restart Neovim and fix any errors you encounter. This can take a while, and sometimes you need to research specific solutions for each plugin. Once everything is working without error, let's restart Neovim one more time and measure our startup time again. The startup time is down to 36 milliseconds. That's a fraction of the time it used to be. But if you ask me, that's not the best part of Lazy. We can try another cool feature of Lazy. You can run the Lazy Profiler using the Lazy Profile command, which will show the startup time for each plugin and what the trigger for each plugin was. You can use this information to change options and improve your startup time. Don't leave yet, I've saved the best for last. Once you have everything loaded the way you want, make sure to save your LazyLock.json file, and you can even check this file into source control. This file allows you to restore your plugin configuration back to a known working state by running the lazy restore command. You can also run this on another system to make sure your configurations are always in sync. If a future plugin update breaks something, just roll it back. I know some of you have asked me to share my dot files. I'm still cleaning things up a bit, but stay tuned for a future episode when I walk you through my entire setup. Make sure to subscribe to see more great Neovim videos like this in the future.